Hi, it's me again. Welcome on my channel, and today we will be working with Jalpa. But first things first. I'm back. I hope I will be much more regular here on YouTube since now. And today we will be doing basically two things. One is quite important. Second is like this quick walkthrough through my work that you partially have seen on the last video with Mosler. And at the end of today's video, there will be kind of a gift for you, for all the newsletter subscribers, my newsletter subscribers. So basically everyone who wrote down to me, DM me on Instagram and asked me to send him my ebook on what? Light painting. So if you don't know about it and you would like to acquire this kind of an ebook, just find me on my Instagram, DM me in a private message, send me your email address, and in a few minutes or hours I will send you this ebook. And maybe, hopefully, it will explain you a few basic things that you should know if you are about to light paint the cars. So again, this is an information for all my newsletter subscribers. If you want to be one, join me, find me on Instagram. Things we're gonna do today. As I told you before, Jalpa, Lamborghini Jalpa, that is parked in Double Red Cars Museum in Brezno, Slovakia. Magnificent car, one of many classic Lamborghinis in that museum. So if you have by any chance any way to get to Brezno in Slovakia, I highly advise you to go there and enjoy many weird, different, amazing, classic sport cars and many others. But today we will be talking mostly about Lightroom, because I've had a few messages after last video and two of you asked me if I am working on the raw files. Of course, I'm working on the raw files. But the second question was if I edit those raw files before sending them to Photoshop to put them together from the layers. Well, the answer is yes, but very slightly. And why? Well, because most of the editing that I'm doing in Photoshop doesn't require lots of edits in the Lightroom. But when I finished working in Photoshop, when all the layers are on a place and the image is complete, then I'm sending this final image back to the Lightroom, and then I'm working a bit more on that photo. I'm creating this final vibe, this final mood of this image, mostly in Lightroom, color-wise, exposure-wise, and so on. So that's why my pre-work in Lightroom, pre-Photoshop work in Lightroom, is rather gentle and not much is changing on that stage of my work. So basically it's just slight exposure correction, sharpening, and that's it. But today I will show it to you step by step what I am doing. So let's jump to Lightroom and then we will get to Photoshop. I will do this quick edit through the Photoshop, then we will get back to Lightroom, and at the end there will be a kind of a gift, kind of a fun, kind of an adventure for you if you would like to participate. So if you're interested, then please stay till the end of this video, and now we can start. Okay, so first of all, as I told you, I am working on a raw files. I know that many people like to work on JPEGs because it's well, it's easier for your PC to work, to handle those compressed files. Of course, you can do it without any problem. I just like to have this non-compressed file that gives me sometimes tiny bits of information, especially in those darker parts. Sometimes it's a matter of small contrast between, for example, like here, very red and slightly less red colors, and basically with the raw files I am able to see those differences better when they are not compressed, because if you're working on JPEGs, those gradients, those colors sometimes tend to get into one another, and it might be harder to work with. Of course, this is my preference, maybe I'm wrong, but for me, I was always working on the raw files, slightly edited in Lightroom, and then sending those raw files to Photoshop. So this is what we will do today. And when we look at the screen, now I have those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 13 photos of this lovely Jalpa. As you can see, different layers. I can skip through all of them. Here is, 14 layers, because here is a dark one with some natural ambient from this space. Then we have one pass with the roof, maybe with some side of the car. Second one with much nicer roof, but with lots of light leaks on the body of the car. This panel over here on the car is placed on this car on the quite steep angle. That's why it's quite hard to avoid those light leaks. Of course, I could have done it from the second side of the car, going behind the car, and maybe I have a shot like this, but I think no. But again, you have to understand that when we are in that museum with Garage Age, we have very limited space to work with those cars, and we are trying to do best we can to get nice, decent photos, but also best we can not to hurt those very pricey cars in any way. So sometimes some movements are quite impossible to take, but I believe we will be able to create something nice even from those layers that I have. So another photo, light mostly on the back, another photo, oh, here I have the one behind, and it gives me this very nice contour over here on the roof, this white line. I really like that. Maybe we'll use some of this foreground of this photo, but you will see what I'm talking about when we get there. We have kind of a fake ambient that I did from the right side of the photo. It gives me some light on the wheels, but it's not too much, but I believe some parts of that particular photo will be used in this image. Then we have slightly stronger ambient from the right, and when we will bump it up a bit, it will look really nice. Another ambient from the back with also some light on the back, on the roof of the car. Okay, another ambient. Another ambient, but the light was directed towards the ceiling, so the light bounced off of the ceiling and give me this nice, very soft light on the ground that might be quite useful in some areas, especially when we'll be working in the darker parts of those images. Another one, another one is lit again towards the ceiling, but below the line of the windows, because, well, you will see why. Here we have another back shot with some nice details hidden in the shadows. Maybe we'll use them, maybe not. We'll see during this process. I never know how it will come out eventually. It's always happening during the shot, during the putting layers together. Thank you. Okay, another shot with very nice lower part of the car, again some light on the wheels. Another one quite similar but with nicer roof. I will have to use probably this one because this light leak on those panels that I've mentioned before. Here is I believe the easiest way to manage this light leak, to remove it, will be with this particular shot. And we will try to connect, join all the other shots with the light from the side to make it look as best as we could without bigger effort to remove those lights. And this is it. So 14 layers. I've already opened them in the Photoshop, as you can see, so we can save some time. But First of all, the preset, or actually the settings that I've used for that photo. And most of my light painted photos have similar values when we are talking about the presets. It's not even a preset, to be honest, but I tend to use them very often. They are quite similar. And as you can see here, we have a raw unedited photo. All the sliders are in the middle, nothing is changed. And here we have this preset. So as you can see, the changes are quite minimal, and the indicators that shows me the over and underexposure of the image, they are active. And as you can see, there are lots of dark parts of this image that are underexposed, of course. And my histogram indicators showing that parts of my image are underexposed and overexposed. Well, again, for that moment, we are not interested in overall looks of those images, because as you have seen, I have different layers of photos with different elements, parts, spaces in the same photo lit in. So I won't be correcting it for each and every photo, just to avoid those indicators and to create a perfect histogram, because after many layers that I will add to this photo, everything will look differently. And when I will come up with the final image and it will be still under or overexposed, I can always correct it afterwards. So that's why I don't care about it for now at all. I can change that. As you can see, I've added some blacks to the mix, just to slightly crush those blacks, but I've took down the shadows in the tone curve a bit to gain more contrast. I like this contrast that I can get from creating the S-curve on the tone curve, because it looks the most natural comparing to, for example, contrast slider or texture or clarity sliders. Of course, I use them too, but my first way of controlling the contrast on the photos before putting them together in Photoshop, and then even after, is using the very slight S-curve. And here the shadows and blacks are taken down even more, just to create this even and very soft transition between the very darker shadows, shadowy parts and so on, with very slight bump of the highlights, of the midtones of the highlights. But as you can see here in the exposure tab, I have those shadows bump up a bit, 20% or 20 points, whatever, because tone curve gives me this, as I told you, this very soft and natural transition between those different parts of the shadows of the darks. But the shadow slider works much more directly, especially when I've set the blacks threshold to +5. It gives me this very slight yet very visible change in the shadows. As you can see, they are not very harsh, but they are appearing exactly where I would like them to be, because they react mostly on those slightly mid-tones shadows parts and not necessarily on those darker parts, which are already threshold by the blacks and slightly dimmed down by the tone curve. So those are the basics. Of course, I've added some texture because I want my photos to be crisp, not too crisp, because we will be adding a high pass to the final image in the Photoshop to create even sharper image, but again, not too sharp, you will see. And if you know my work, you know how this sharpness looks on my photos. Clarity, of course, yes, but remember that the clarity is your first sin when you are working with the photos, and especially when you are a beginner, you like to use a clarity a lot, because of course the change is immediate and very noticeable, which for some people at the beginning might give you that feeling that you've done a lot, you've changed a lot, you've edited this photo. It's not some slight edit that only you know about, but when you will bump up the clarity, then everybody sees that you've edited it. And to be honest, it almost never looks good. So clarity as a kind of a contrast parameter is quite fine, as long as you use it very wisely and you are not overdoing it to create those little monsters that sometimes look like HDR images with just the clarity slider bump up so heavily. So no. And then we have a vibrance and saturation sliders, which are quite crucial because, as you can see, I've added quite a lot of vibrance, which gives me this vibrant colors in the places where they are appearing. And overall saturation I usually put down a bit to maintain those quite even colors on my images. So of course I can bump up saturation even more, and I'm getting this nice vibrant red. But as you can see, according to my temperature white balance, everything should be rather neutral or even slightly colder in the overall looks. But when I bump up the saturation, the general saturation slider, everything is going very unnatural. Of course, I'm getting very nice red on the car, but as you can see, the surroundings, the ground, the green sign over here, some shadowy parts, they are getting very unpleasant yellow tint. And of course I can remove that tint with the color mixer, with the yellow and orange sliders, but this is my first way of doing it. And then if I feel that there is not enough or too much of some color, of course I'm doing it in a color mixer, but again usually after I've finished in Photoshop. So when I feel that there is too much of some kind of color, I'm changing it, but after the edit in Photoshop. So that's it. Okay, then we have a color mixer. I have few things that I did here, and I do them with most of the photos. This particular preset was used over all the photos from that night, from that museum, from that space, because all of them are quite similar. And first things that I do, I usually turn down purples and magenta, because especially with the red cars, you probably know, you probably seen it, that whenever the car is very vibrant red in the color, those purples and magentas like to show up in a darker or brighter spots. So I tend to remove them, to replace them by natural reds. And then I correct it in the Photoshop if it's needed. Aqua and blue, they are taken down a bit, especially aqua that sometimes appear in the windscreens, in the windows of the cars, so something like that. And of course the saturation of the red is put up very heavily, because this is how I remember that car from that night. And you have to be aware that most of those cars, those are the cars that have like 50-60 years at least. So the colors, the paint on those cars are quite worn off, and I like to help them look as they tend to look when they were brand new. So that's why the saturation is so high. And the luminance, of course, reds are also bumped up quite heavily. Yellows and aquas here are probably from some other shot, some other car from that night, because as I told you, I'm using the same presets, so probably they were needed in some other situation, probably with the green, blue, yellow TVR that I've been working a few days ago. But we don't have to worry about it, because it doesn't matter for that particular photo. Especially, again, I will be doing some color correction when the final image will be ready. So color mixer, and here, as I told you, a detail tab, so sharpening my image. Without that, you can see not much is changing, but actually I'm masking my outlines of the car quite heavily to avoid the sharpness on the panels of the car, on the paint and so on. So I usually go quite high with the masking. Here is around 50%, let's keep it that way. Amount, not too much, because again, as I told you, we will be doing this high pass technique to sharpen the image at the end, so we can leave it like this. radius as a default. We can leave it like that because it tends to create those edges that are not very. Of course, they are very. Of course, they are needed in this sharpening process, but we don't want to go overboard and get those very harsh and visible lines. So 1 as a default is quite okay, and the details, so how those edges that the radius create are being visible. So kind of a contrast between those lines. Let's keep it like this. Luminance, of course, a bit, because we need to reduce the noise. Again, after all, I can do it once again. So usually I'm doing this part once on that stage of the work, and that's it in the matter of removing the noise from our images. I can always do it once again with the final photo, but it's not necessarily needed to remove any kind of noise when working with the light painting, because this noise might be useful and might be needed when you are painting in some parts of the cars from different layers, or using the mixer brush. You have to recreate this noise anyway, so it's nice to keep it on the photo, slightly of course, to have kind of a benchmark of a noise that is needed to make those elements that were painted in or brushed in look natural, look okay. So let's leave it like this. Chromatic aberration on, of course. Remove chromatic aberration should be on. I don't know why it's off, but okay. Enable profile correction. Well, I'm not using this profile correction because I'm working on my Fuji X-T4, and until today you can see that unable to locate a matching profile automatically. Lightroom doesn't have my Fujifilm lenses that I'm using, so that's why I'm leaving it turned off, because this this profile correction is happening in the body of the camera. The presets for profile correction for my particular lens, which is 16-80 f4 Fujinon, is built in the camera, so we have to assume that this is the correct profile correction for that lens. I can always do it manually if I want. If I feel that something is not right, then you have always those tools over here. Again, I usually not here. I usually use them if I need to, again, after I finish my image. So as you can see, that's it. I'm not adding any kind of vignettes. I'm not adding some fake noise. I'm not adding any kind of color grading and so on, because those photos should be as close to the raw files as it's possible, with some slight exposure changes and saturation changes, due to the fact that it will be easier for me to connect some parts of the images in the Photoshop later on. When we come to the transform, I'm also not doing any kind of transform corrections, because I will be doing it afterwards. When I'll be putting up all those 14 photos all together, I might crop something, I might change something. Sometimes I auto-align those layers, and they tend to create this kind of a edge that will be visible in the edge of the lack of the edge of the photo in those edits. That's why I'm doing the transform. After all, I'm sometimes changing the aspect ratio also. I want to keep those photos the same to be sure that they will align in the Photoshop correctly. That's it for the Lightroom. Again, I can show you how this preset looks on different photos. So this is with the preset, this is without. As you can see, it's brighter, it's slightly more bluish than yellow, and the reds are popping up very nicely. Basically, that's it. Now we are taking those photos to the Photoshop, putting them up all together, and then we are getting back to the Lightroom for the final touches. Alright, so we are in Photoshop, and I want to be very thorough with the things that I'll be doing right now. You've seen it in the last video. So If there will be some harder or more interesting part in that edit, then I will stop and I will tell you a few words about it. But for now, I will try to edit it as quick as possible. So as you can see, till this moment I've been working mostly with my ambient surrounding lights to create this space of the light for our topic. And now when I can see most of the surroundings in my image, I can start adding layers on the car directly. Of course you can do it otherwise, but this is how I do it. And after that, I will decide if some of those ambient lights, those ambient layers are necessary for the photo or not. For now, it's easier for me to add the main layers of the car when I see the surroundings clearly. So let's go. Okay, so the first part is over. Mostly, of course, I need to clean this image from the light leaks, but as I told you before, it won't be so hard because there is this one long big light leak through all the car. It will be easy to maintain the colors, maintain the gradients of this color, so it should be quite quick. Some small things to remove, and as you have seen, I was turning off and on all those layers many times just to look on the lit mode what parts of this particular image, one photo that I've been working on, might be useful for this overall composition. That's why I've been doing it. And now I will go through all those layers once again, turning them off and on, and I will see what are the things that I can remove from that particular layer with the brush from that layer, and not to do it manually on overall merged photo. So there will be some things that I might remove very quickly, and then again I will try to decide upon the ambient lights that I've used, that I want to keep them in the mix or not, or to brighten them up a bit if it's necessary, but I will decide on that right now during the work. So now quick cleaning up, maybe some slight fake light, like gradient or something like that, coming from left or right, maybe some very, very gentle fog like smoke or whatever, just to add some vibe to that image, but again very slightly. I really don't like when those kind of fake smokes, fogs, mist and so on are very visible on those images. They look very fake. So here, if I will use it, you will see it, and then I will use it very, very softly, just as a kind of a texture for that light gradient that I will let in from the left or the right. We'll see. So again, quick edit, and we are getting back to Lightroom. Why the two copies of the same photo? I've merged all of those layers into this one. Let's make it green. And then I've created a copy of this one just as a backup if necessary to get back to something that I've changed or I destroyed while cleaning this image. I usually don't, but I'm doing it anyway just for the sake. So let's go. Yeah, sometimes when you ask a generative fill to do that filling and you get something like that. Cool. But basically for the bigger panels, for the bigger parts of the car, I usually use generative fill because content aware fill likes to add something else to the mix, and as always we have different options for this generative fill. As you can see, this one is the nicest one, and it continues this line of the light from the doors. Of course, it's how he thinks it should be. I will remove it. I don't have like the generative fill layer with everything gone, but it doesn't matter because this is very big part of the panel that generative fill had to create. And it will be covered with this AI artifacts because it's that big and it will stand out. For now we cannot see it, but when I will zoom in, you can clearly see the line, maybe not so bad, but I can see that, that this line in between the generated and non-generated original part of the image is quite visible. So I will brush it out with a mixer brush anyway. So when I will be doing it, I will also take care of this light leak to the edge of the door. So it doesn't really matter. This one is okay to use for me. Okay. As you can see, I'm struggling a bit here today. Don't know why, but my laptop is saying no to me. And because of that, I forget to go through those layers in the process, as I told you before. It doesn't matter, I just have to do some of those things manually where I could have done it on the layers. But, well, it looks fine. Now, some gradient, some light, some smoke, and that's it. The car is almost clean. Maybe a few small things, and then we are going back to Lightroom. And for now, for those final touches, I'm turning down this lamp because I see shit. So as you can see, that's mostly it in the Photoshop. Some slight gradient with the cutout of the of this pillar in the building. Some fog, not too much. Again, just a tad. And now save it as a PSB file because it's quite big. Send it back to Lightroom and then final edits there. So let's go. But before that, of course, I forgot about the high pass sharpening method. So putting all those layers together, merge layers. Now duplicate this one, it's the same. Filters, other, high pass, and again not too much because the high pass filter works a bit like this radius slider in the Lightroom. As you can see, when we will put it up very strongly, very high, the contours, the edges of the image are very visible. This nasty edge, nasty HDR vibe, or too much of a clarity is showing up. So just a small amount of that high pass for me, around 2 to 3 points per each shot, per each final composite, and then change the opacity mode from normal to overlay or soft light. It depends. Soft lights adds slightly more edge, slightly more sharpness to overall image. Overlay is sharp but not so visible, so I can even turn it off and on. Now it's with the high pass filter, now without. As you can see, mostly those edges are popping up a bit and the rest of the car is staying mostly the same, so it's fine. We can merge those two together again. And one more thing that I forgot about before, when you look at those wheels, those rims, the front one is quite nicely lit, the rear one also, but it got less light in the process, and it's reflecting the cast, the overall cast from the ground, so it's slightly more yellowish, and I would like to make them more alike. So of course we will go to the sponge tool and we will take a desaturate value and we will desaturate this rim first of all, like this. And I think we will add some light to it. So again, dodge tool, mid-tones at the level of, let's say 10, and just a dab in the center of the wheel with hardness of the brush somewhere above the middle, so 60-70, and just like that it starts to look nicer, maybe even wider. Some highlights dab also, and now it looks fine. And now I'm ready to save as a PSB. So let's get back to Lightroom. Okay, so we are back in the Lightroom, and when I've saved the file as a PSB, all those merged layers, they've sent, the Photoshop sent it automatically as a one file, as a save on one of those photos, back to Lightroom. So no importing, no stuff like this, it's just here. Okay, so as I told you before, transform. Obviously the frame is slightly off, so we will try to take care of it with automatic transform. And it's slightly better, not great. We will rotate it a bit to the left, like this. As you can see, the white edges are appearing. Yes, thank you. So this is why we didn't transform or crop that image before. That's it. So now it's nicer, maybe rotate it a bit more, looking at those pillars and the car. Well, it's not bad. I tend and I like to change the aspect of the image very often, to make those cars slightly wider, to make them look more aggressive. Of course, this is just my opinion, so I tend to change this aspect a bit. Maybe it's too much, like -5 is fine. And now the framing, so I will change the aspect of this image. And if you are following my Instagram, you know that I'm a huge fan of 16:9 aspect ratio, more of this cinematic look in a photography, like this. I don't know if I want to cut this lamp above or not. We don't need so much ground, this will be fine. And now I can see that I still have to rotate this image slightly more, like this, okay. And that's it. Of course, we don't have a final preset, because I've been working on that Jalpa before. I have a preset here. As you can see, this front shot looks quite nice. Just let it upload with all the data. Yes, hello. Something is wrong with my machine, with my computer. Don't know why, but okay. Let's leave it like this. Maybe it's time for a new one. So in this preset, as you can see, slight bump into the exposure, slight bump into the highlights. Again, some texture, maybe even too much. And now, in the opposite to those files edited before Photoshop, the tone curve is going slightly higher in the shadows, in the blacks themselves. They are slightly crushed, even though, as you can see, the histogram shows me that some of the elements are still underexposed. But really, I don't care. I cannot see them. Whenever I print out my images, I cannot see those small dots, so I don't really bother. This will be fine. So I'm just taking this preset from that photo, preset settings, more like settings, and I am applying them to this one. And now it looks, well, sorry, I forgot that I've copied the transform also. We don't want that. So once again, let's get back here. Everything is fine except for the transform and except for, no, rest is fine, copy. Let's get back here. Let's paste it. And as you can see, for now, this red is slightly too heavy and too washed up because of the higher luminance, so we are taking it down. The yellows are fine, just let it upload correctly. All right, let's see at the saturation. Saturation is at level 0, so let's add it a bit. And let's turn this hue slightly into orange, because now this red seems to be too much of a washout. So not like this, but somewhere around 5. And we will go down with the luminance for the red even more. Yeah, something like that. Maybe a bit more of a saturation for the red, so let's say 8, and slightly more saturation for the orange, because now the orange is the part of this red in here, so not much, but it looks fine. Maybe also some luminance change for the orange, -10. Again, I'm not quite sure because of the lamp going straight into my eyes, but probably before I will publish this photo, I will check it once again. This is just a presentation for you. So now it looks... Hello. God damn it. Don't know what is happening, but okay. As you can see now, those reds looks much better. And I believe this is all for that image. I will show it to you in the video on the full screen before it will get to my Instagram. Maybe before that something will change. You will see if you follow my Instagram, but basically that's it for the Lightroom work. Of course, someday we will get into more details. It was a short video, I believe it has like an hour or even more for now, we'll see. But this is the basic stuff that I do in the Lightroom pre and after the Photoshop work. So not much before, not much after, but overall it's quite important and quite powerful in the overall image. So before, after. Right. Yeah, so thank you for today's meeting. And now for the final thought, final gift, final surprise that I've promised at the beginning of the video. Let me turn my face towards you. So I thought it might be quite fun idea to edit this particular photo together. Well, you have already seen what I did with this photo. It will probably look like this at the end when we will be showcasing those photos with the materials from Double Red Cars Museum at Garage Age Facebook. So this is my photo, and I've decided that I would like to have some fun with you. I know it doesn't sound good, but what I mean is that I would like to share those 14 layers, 14 photos with you, with all of my subscribers, for my newsletter subscribers, so you can edit the same photo. You can see how my photo is looking right now at the end, and I thought that we might compare our work. So if you are a subscriber to my newsletter, you will receive an email with the link to those photos, to the raw files from my Fuji, and you can edit as you want, if you want. And I'll be glad if you will be willing to share it with me, so we can showcase your edits and compare them to, let's say, the original one that I did. And thanks to that, we will see different approaches to this photo. I think it might be interesting. If you want to join me, then just download those links if you are my newsletter subscriber. If you would like to take part in this game, join my newsletter by sending me an email, or actually finding me on Instagram and sending me a private message with your email. I will send you my ebook, and I will send you a link to those photos, so you can download them and you can edit them by yourself, and we will see how you will do it. So if you would like to join, I will be very glad, and I'm really waiting to see your edits of this particular Jalpa shot. So see you next time, and see you in the newsletter. Bye!